Okay, you like the food, but would you buy the stock? Choosing restaurant stocks might not begin with a check of the menu. Renny Ponvert has come up with a different way of checking on these companies. He's the founder and the CEO of the research firm Management CV. Renny Ponvert, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you.
Nice to be here,
Explain a little bit about your research perspective. You don't just look at the numbers, you look at the people, right?
Yeah, exactly, Pim. And to be candid, we really focus on the people. We don't have a lot to say about valuation and timing. There are plenty of other people out there doing that. But in the restaurant industry, we think the people are very much the crux of the story in terms of leadership.
So when you talk about the people and the leadership, is it really just all about experience, that they have to have experience, running previous restaurant companies?
That's part of the story. We really do three things. We create sort of a factual resume for them, a track record, where we look at how they performed net of their competitor CEOs in the industry. For us, that's their resume. The second thing we do is we spend a lot of time reading their compensation plans, and particularly their employment agreements, to figure out how well or badly they're aligned with outside investors. We want them to feel that their rewards are the same as their shareholders, essentially. And then the third thing we do is go through a very structured due diligence checklist based on sort of an M&A kind of process, where we look to make sure that from a fiduciary perspective, again, they're well aligned with their shareholders.
All right, well, let's use one company as an example, one that you've actually looked at. This is BJ's Restaurants, correct? Well, tell us about the management there.
So Jerry Dietschel is the CEO there. Superb, coming from background at the Cheesecake Factory. And what we like about him is one of these traits that we see across all CEOs is a rigorous operating discipline. So CEO Dietschel's got exactly that, a very structured, systematic way to look at operating costs in the restaurant chain. We think they have tremendous growth possibilities. He's really well aligned with his shareholders, owns about 1.2%, I think, of the stock. Just a superb growth idea in the small cap area.
What about the team that he's put together? How important is that? I mean, it's not just going to be about one person, right?
No, not at all. And one common trait, again, you see with these CEOs, particularly in the restaurant industry, is they focus on the actual location managers and really make them a key part of the formula for the company's success. So in the case of BJ's Restaurants, he describes the individual restaurant managers as the life and blood of his restaurant chain, and we like that kind of attitude.
What about their ability to sort of navigate difficult times? Do you want to see that on the resume as well?
Yeah, we do. So when I was talking about their factual track record, one of the things we do at Management CV is we essentially regress their performance numbers net of their industry peers, so we can see through time if Jerry Dietschel or other CEOs have actually performed better than or worse than their industry peers. So we have a really statistically factual way of looking at their skill, if you will, as operating executives.
Renny, what about things like related party transactions? You know, the company doing business with companies that have other relationships, either with board members or with other executives inside the company.
So BJ's Restaurants is one that has a situation there, although we don't think it's a negative, but from a fiduciary perspective, we think it's important to know about. They have a board member who owns a food supply company. His company provides about 40% of the annual spend that BJ's has on its food supply. And the board member's company owns 16% of the stock at BJ's Restaurants. So it's an important thing from a fiduciary standpoint to know about. In that case, we find it benign and actually would argue that it probably aligns the interests well between the supplier and the customer.
Let's bring in two other companies, Cheesecake Factory and P.F. Chang's. Same situations?
Similar in the sense that we think Cheesecake is a wonderful company. We're not as keen on the management team there. Particularly when you juxtapose them to a company like P.F. Chang's, where we particularly like the management team. In the case of P.F. Chang's, we like the way the management sort of approaches the industry. They have an interesting dual theme where they have obviously the P.F. Chang's bistro, but they also have the payway fast food concept working, and we think they've executed a really good turnaround there. That's a pair of CEOs, actually co-CEOs, Rick Federico and Bert Vivian.
All right.
And again, when we look at their compensation alignments, et cetera, they're very well aligned with outside shareholders.
Thank you very much, Renny Ponvert of CV Management.